Okay. Hi, it's great to see you both. How are you doing?
Good.
Doing well.
Great. So before we get started, I have on my notes that you go by Cindy and Kent. Is that okay to call you that?
Yep, that's good.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Did you have any trouble getting on the call this evening?
Nope, we were able to get here very easily.
Okay, that's good to hear. If you ever have any trouble accessing the link, then just let me know, email me or text me, and I can send you an updated link, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, so before we get started, my name is Kate. I am a social work intern. So I'm currently, our sessions are going to be supervised, but everything that we say in this session will remain confidential. And just to make sure that we all have an understanding of what confidentiality is, I'll start with Kent. Can you provide a definition of confidentiality?
Basically anything that we talk about is going to be kept between us.
Okay. And Cindy, what's your definition?
Same thing, just between us, right? Privacy, confidentiality, it stays in the room.
Okay. So as you both described, everything does stay in this room. It'll be kept between us. The only thing that I'll be bringing up in my supervision has to do with my attending skills and what I need to complete my degree. However, if you do mention that you want to harm yourself or others, I am a mandated reporter, so I'll have to go to appropriate authorities and report that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So now that we have discussed confidentiality, I want to talk about what brought you here. So we'll start with Kent. Can you tell me what brought you in?
Yeah, it was a joint decision to come in. We had a big fight and I'm staying at my brother's currently.
I don't know if I would say joint. I had called Kent to let him know that I found a marriage counselor for us.
Yeah, well, I agreed to coming in is what I meant.
Okay, so, oh, that's you.
Both. Okay, so you're both here now. That's the important first step. But can you tell me when this fight happened?
It was about 2 weeks ago. Since then, Kent has not been back home.
Okay, so we'll shift back to Kent. Can you tell me what happened during this fight?
Uh, so I had a few beers before the argument started and Cindy noticed I was drinking. We started to fight over how we didn't have enough money. And all I remember is it got heated and I left to go to a bar to blow off some steam.
He forgot the part where he shoved me into the fridge before leaving me and the kids.
I only shoved her so I could get out before I hurt anyone or did something I was going to regret.
Okay, so that is some pretty intense fights. Cindy, do these fights happen often?
More we recently, I would say yes. He goes to the bar almost every night. Whenever I go to argue with him about it, he just shuts down and leaves the house to drink more, and we can't even finish the debate. If he didn't drink as much as he does, we would have extra money to spend on ourselves and our children.
Okay, so first, what I'm hearing, Kent, is that you're using drinking to calm your nerves, but Cindy, you're concerned with how much Kent drinks and how this is impacting your family's financial status.
Yep, that's how
Yep.
I feel.
Yep.
Okay, and Kent, how do you feel when Cindy reacts to your drinking?
It's frustrating. I don't think it's that big a deal to have a few beers at night to calm my nerves after a hard day at work.
But it's not just a few beers. It leads to going out to the bar and driving home late at night. I fear that he won't make it back home, and I want him to be more present with myself and the kids while they're still young. I also have a demanding job, and yet I don't spend the hard-earned money drinking and being away from my family.
Okay, so I'm sensing a lot of difficult emotions on both ends. Just to pivot, are your children safe right now?
Yes, they're with their aunt right now, my sister.
Okay, good. So I understand, Kent, that you are drinking to calm your nerves, but you don't intend to hurt your loved ones. But Cindy, I can understand that with Kent going out to the bars and drinking and then driving home, that does cause a lot of unintentional hurt and it can be anxiety inducing for you.
Yes, I wish that he would ease up on the drinking and be able to have an argument with me without shutting down and escaping.
Okay. So now that I have a clear picture of what's been going on between the two of you, I want to get to know more about your individual family background. So we'll start with Kent again. Can you tell me what your family was like growing up?
Well, my dad was pretty intense. He worked long hours as a home inspector, and when he came home, he always had a drink in his hand as soon as he walked in. Things were good from what I can remember until I got to around 8. My parents argued a lot, and some nights it ended with my dad physically harming my mom. I tried to get in the middle once, but he pushed me to the ground. He actually developed cirrhosis of the liver from excessive drinking and died when I was 18.
I'm very sorry to hear that. That sounds like a very tough experience to go through, especially at such a young age. Did you go to counseling at any point that you recall, either while your father was alive or after he passed?
No, my mom and younger brother were my support system throughout that time, and we all grieved in our own way, but part of me was relieved that he was gone, so my mom wouldn't be hurt anymore. I never wished anything bad upon my own father, but he always brought me a lot of anger and confusion.
Okay. And that's normal when, there's a high tension household and someone passes. That's normal to have those mixed feelings during grief. But do you think that growing up watching your dad behave in the way he did could have some influence and could explain your behaviors now?
Yeah, definitely. I can see how my drinking and anger issues mimic my dad's behavior. I vowed I'd never be like him, and that's why I leave before I hurt my wife or children.
Have you ever thought about maybe drinking less or when you do drink, staying home during the week?
I think that's something I could do. I mean, maybe if I could cut it down to 1 to 2 beers a night at home.
Okay, that sounds like a good start. Cindy, what do you think about that plan?
I would really like to see that happen, but Ken has lost my trust for now, so I will believe it when I see it.
Okay. I understand that's normal, and it'll take some time to rebuild that trust. So now we'll switch over to Cindy. Can you tell me a little bit of what it was like growing up for you with your family?
My parents were pretty normal. They had arguments here and there, but my dad never hit my mother. I remember a few intense arguments they had in front of my siblings and I, but they were able to talk it out.
Okay. And would you say you had a good relationship with your parents?
Yes, I still do. I'm the youngest, so I remember getting extra attention, and even my siblings stepped in to take care of me at times.
Wow, that does sound like a lot of positive attention. Do you think that you look for that same bond with Kent?
Absolutely. I thought Kent was the positive bond for me in the beginning, but now I'm not so sure where we stand.
Hmm. That's an interesting insight. Have you been able to bring this up to Kent?
No, usually our main argument is about money, and before I can tell him how I really feel, he's already gone.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that we have two very different family dynamics that we're bringing into the marriage, and that's impacting the communication style. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for sharing all of that with me. It really does help me moving forward. And now I've taken some notes on your family background. And the reason I asked all of this is because it's important to understand where you both came from and how you had important interactions with your attachment figures in the past, because that directly impacts us in our future adult relationships. So you may think that when you move out of the home with, and you've moved on, you have a new marriage, that you've left all of the negative patterns behind with your family. But actually, what all of us carry is multi-generational emotional processes. So for you, Kent, you had a very high tense household. And so when this happens in your marriage, you have what is called emotional cutoff. So you would rather leave and escape before the situation gets too tense. But on the other hand, Cindy, you had a very emotionally attentive household and everything was talked out until the end, until there was a resolution. And so you have what might be called emotional over-involvement. So that's when you would rather talk things out with Kent or else the conflict feels unresolved. Does all that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's a lot to take in, but it sure does.
Yeah, and I can understand that. It is a lot to come to terms with, and so we'll explore that more. And it takes a while to accept our emotional patterns and be able to change them. So, with all that being said, I suggest that we start meeting weekly to discuss more about your emotional interactions with each other and a little bit about your family history. And then once we separate those initial emotions from your actions, we can start developing tools, and that way you both can be able to communicate in a more healthy way and get back to the way the marriage was in the beginning. So does that sound like something you'd both be willing to try?
Yep, sounds good.
Well, we could try it.
That's great to hear. So, Kent, how did you feel about your first session today?
It was good. I feel like you can help us understand how to make our marriage better.
I'm glad you feel that way. How about you, Cindy?
I definitely feel better knowing that we made it here and we are both willing to make this work.
Perfect. And I'm happy to begin working with you both and getting you back on track. So for the next session, I do have an assessment that you'll both take home. It's called the differentiation of self-inventory. So it's a 43 item questionnaire and it goes over multiple different scenarios of how you relate or interact and how you relate to different interactions and communication patterns. So it's on a scale from 1 to 6, and you'll answer each question based on how you think it relates to you, either 1, not at all, or 6, very much so. And then when we come back together next week, I'll analyze those results and score them. And then we can really determine what your relationship patterns are and your communication style with each other. So, are you both comfortable completing that assessment?
Yep, sounds good.
No.
Great. And then another technique that we're going to complete together is I'm going to build a basic genogram. And that's a map of your family history, all your relationships within your family. So what we spoke about today will help me create the basic of it. And then we'll go over some whether somebody passed or if there was a separation or divorce, different demographics, age, gender within your family. And by the process of creating that genogram together and making it more complex, then we can fill in the gaps and we can really see how your family history relates to your marriage today. So, does that also make sense?
Yep.
Okay, and that's great. So, do you have any questions or comments before we wrap up our first session?
No, I don't have any questions.
Is insurance going to cover all this?
So that's something we can also talk about in the next session. What I'm going to do is with the intake form you gave me, I will go ahead and contact the insurance company and then they can send me a summary of what they will cover or won't cover, and we'll discuss that moving forward.
Because money's tight for us, so it's like it's gonna make another stress by trying to make the stress better if you guys have like a sliding scale or any kind of support systems for us.
Always money.
Absolutely. I understand. We can definitely get it to work. With the plan that you have, I can say that I do take that often. And if anything, it would be a small copay. If that copay is too much, we can always discuss a payment plan.
Thank you.
Of course. And it was great meeting you both. I look forward to working with you.
Nice meeting you too. Thank
Thank
you.
you.